What is up, guys? Alex here from technoclass.com, coming to you with an unboxing and review of the Redfox Wizbook WB-101H. This is a tablet slash transformable laptop that runs Windows and Android. So if you're an Android fan, you can play a Clash of Clans or Modern Combat, and you can switch to Windows to, do your Microsoft Office stuff and presentations and stuff like that. It's got some pretty good specs, a Z3735F Intel Atom quad-core processor, 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage, and stuff like that. Good for a lot of productivity, but we're gonna check it out right now. We'll see you guys in just a bit. Alright, so here is the box of the Wizbook, and like I said before, you can dual boot Android or Windows. You can't run both at the same time, but at least you can play Android games and switch to Windows when you want to. Kind of a very good combination of productivity and gaming when it comes to, you're gaming on Android and then productivity on the PC side. Here's the tablet side. Let's turn it on and look for the other parts of the box. We have some manuals, a user guide, looks like a warranty on the back. And here is the keyboard. These are super duper awesome because you can be productive, and the keyboard is pretty good. The size is fairly nice, and you even have a multi-touch trackpad. Here is actually this is a OTG cable, so you can plug in some other devices on there, which is nice, but you'll see why later that you might not need it. This is a USB cable for charging or data transfer, pretty standard. And here is a DC plug, because you can charge the Redfox even without USB out. So this is good because you don't always want to be charging your device with just USB. This is a little bit faster than your typical USB charging, plus it frees up a USB port for usage on other devices. Alright, so here is the Redfox Wizbook WB-101H. Now 101 means it's 10.1 inches, and this is the laptop built complete, with the keyboard dock itself. The keyboard dock is pretty much a dummy dock. It just gives us the keyboard. Oh, it's upside down. A keyboard and a touchpad, as you can see. We might see the mouse moving around. There it is. You can see it over on the right side. It's a keyboard dock. There's no hard drive in there. There's no battery in there. All of the internal processing stuff is on the tablet side, because you can detach it and just use the tablet on its own. When fully built, the Wizbook looks exactly like a laptop would. It does have the hinge on the back, ports on the sides, the camera is over here, some ports over here, and some rubber feet on the bottom. Pretty standard looking laptop. The plastics, in my opinion, they're okay. They're not fingerprint magnety, which is great, but they're also kind of shiny. So watch out for, scratching your Wizbook, because it'll definitely show. On the bottom, there's kind of the plastic. It's not possibly the best plastics out there, but it does the job. It's a great looking laptop either way. All right, so we're looking at the tablet here. This is 10.1 inch, 1280 by 800 IPS display, looking pretty good. I'm not complaining. This is a very good display for this kind of laptop. Nice size as well. As you can see, there is the Redfox button. Actually is doubles as the start button. It's not very evident. I thought it was just a logo, but it is a start button. The display is IPS, and it does have good viewing angles. Of course, I do have very bright lights here, so you have to forgive the reflections. So there it is. The bezels are kind of thick for this kind of thing, but of course this is a tablet laptop thing, and that means you need the bezels. On the top side, you have the power button and volume rocker. On the left side is where most of the ports are. This is very important. 3.5mm headphone jack. This is the DC input, so you can charge your laptop without using any of these other ports. This is a full-size USB OTG port. An HDMI out, mini HDMI, which is, we'll discuss this later. This is very awesome. Another USB port, this time is a micro port, and underneath this flap is a micro SD card for expanding your storage. On the right side, there's nothing, and on the bottom you have a keyboard connector port. On the top, on the back, we have a 5-megapixel camera right there, a Redfox logo, kind of nice white Redfox logo, Wizbook logo, Intel Inside logo, and I believe an NTC required sticker. All right, so we're taking a look at the keyboard dock right here. As you can see, chiclet keys, nearly full size. A lot of keys there, but you do have to press function on certain ones. And we have a touchpad right here, trackpad, multi-touch capable, which is nice, but I do wish it was a little bit bigger. Now, as far as the keyboard is concerned, it is kind of mushy in a certain way. There's not, you know, a big, fast, clicky return, which is not so good, but it's a pretty decent spacing in between keys. So you shouldn't be able to, shouldn't be making mistakes so often, which is nice. Now, to connect the tablet to the keyboard dock, you just slide it under there and just press down. And to disconnect the keyboard dock, you have to slide this little nub here and pull on the tablet. There we go. All right, so as far as the design goes, I think it's a fairly practical design and actually not bad looking either. You know, the thickness isn't so thick. It's about the same size as other competing brands like these. And the keyboard and touchpad is really, really good. I would have wanted some more higher quality plastics here and there, especially here on the bottom and on the keyboard dock, but you know, can't expect everything from a 12995 device. You know, at least you get a lot of stuff on the tablet side. You get 32 gigs of storage and you know, switching to Android and PC at the same time. All right, so speaking of the Android side, this is the Android running on the Wizbook WB-101H, and this is Android 4.4.4. And with the custom button to move it to change OS to Windows if you want to. Of course, if you're running on Android, you have 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of storage out of the 32. It's split between 16 and 16 between Windows and Android. So 16 gigs for the Android side is actually quite a lot. You can install some games and should have enough even with a micro SD card to expand the storage. Now, if you want to be productive on the Android side, you can still use the keyboard dock and type on the keyboard dock and use the touchpad as well. Plus, if you want a mouse on your Android side, you can even put in a mouse on the keyboard dock because it has a full-size USB expansion on the keyboard dock. But we're going to look at it as a tablet right now. Now, given that this is a Intel Atom quad-core Z3735F processor, this thing is very, very smooth. Now, as you can see, it does run almost at 60, probably at 60. You're watching this video camera is taking 60 FPS video. So you'll see every single frame if it drops or not. And as you can see, it's very, very smooth. Let's go to the app drawer. As you can see, the app drawer is a little bit the old school style, but you shouldn't expect to try to change this launcher because the switch to Windows button is right here on the drop-down menu. As far as performance is concerned, as you can see, we have 35,142 points on Antutu because Intel Atom just screams on Android. It doesn't do so well for PC because, you know, Intel i7s are so much bigger processors than the Intel Atoms. But for Android, the 3735F is a very, very capable quad-core processor. All right, so now we're playing a game called Modern Combat 5. This is running on, of course, the Redfox Wizbook with the Intel Atom Z3735F. If you don't believe me that it performs great on Android, just watch and see how Modern Combat 5 runs on the Intel Atom Z3735. It can run really, really well. You can see this is a 60 frames per second video, so you should be able to see every single frame of this game. Come on, jump over that thing. Oh, come on. And as you can see, game runs really well. And as you can see, the Redfox Wizbook also supports Bluetooth controllers like this one. This is a Moga Pro Power controller. Let's try and steal a car here. Oh, come on. All right, let's get in this one. As you can see, the frame rate is very, very good. The Intel Atom Z3735 is very excellent on Android devices. The games are running really, really good on the Z3735. Whoa! As you can see, that frame rate though. That frame rate is good. So yeah, that's the Intel Atom side, the Android side of gaming. I'll show you a little bit more and then we'll move on to the PC. Alright, so because the Redfox has a mini HDMI output on the left side, you can actually output Android or PC video games onto a monitor. Now, as you can see on the back, there's a monitor right there. Please do ignore the brightness of the monitor because that monitor is already broken. And I use it as a spare, so it's super duper dark now. But as you can see, I can play Clash of Clans here and press all of these buttons, and as you can see, it does show up on the monitor right there, and there's no lag. Plus, the audio goes through that monitor as well, so I can, you can output it into a projector, play big games, or play movies from your Redfox and output it onto a nice monitor. Alright, so now we're back on the PC side of things. The PC is very interesting because Windows is particularly very demanding in terms of space. Now, 2 gigs of RAM is okay for multitasking and basic stuff. You can do Photoshop, but it will take a while. You can play, you can install any single app that you want from desktop, assuming it can fit into the hard drive, because as things go with the 32 gig storage, 16 gig goes to Android, 16 gig goes to PC. And if you're not familiar with how big Windows is about 10 gigs. Or give or take, depending on how many updates that you install or other features that you want installed. Now, that means you only get about 5 extra gigs to install anything else on the PC side, which also you should save extra for, because you need the about 2 gigs for virtual memory if you want to have a good, healthy amount of memory. So installing stuff on the PC side is a little tricky. You can go the micro SD route to expand the storage and install there, but micro SDs are slower than the internal storage of the device. So if you're going to install stuff there, make sure that you're okay with it running a bit slow. The great thing about the Redfox, though, is that you have a lot of USB ports running around. You have a micro USB, a full-size USB right here on the tablet, and another full-size USB on the keyboard dock, giving you up to 3 USB ports for extra keyboard, extra mice, extra hard drives, spare hard drives if you have those, and you have a micro SD slot as well. Like I said before, you also get the mini HDMI to output video, which is very great. Works like a secondary monitor or a secondary primary monitor for PC. You can use a larger monitor and disable this one if you want. Now, the performance of this laptop on Windows is pretty good. It's a Intel Atom Z3735F, pretty good for a lot of activities on Windows. You can do some basic photo editing, some word processing, and web browsing and watching videos and stuff like that. You can even watch 1080p, no problem. It's when you want to play 3D games that it will reach its limit a little bit. Assuming you're able to install, something like League of Legends or Dota 2 on this. Dota 2, by the way, is like 12 gigs, which really, really huge, and it won't fit internally on the 5 gigs of extra storage, which is super duper small. I'm gonna say you only have 3 gigs after everything, after virtual memory and stuff like that. So if you finally manage to maybe install League of Legends on this guy, you will be able to run it. You will be able to play against bots, but once you play against real life people, that's when it's super duper chug. So don't try to play PvP or something on this guy. You should be able to play very simple 3D games, which we'll show right now. Alright, so here's a game called, I believe, Halo Spartan Assault. It's a simple 2D, top-down 3D shooter. As you can see, I can move around. The frame rate is not so good. I would say this is around 20 frames per second right here. Let me throw a grenade. But, you can't expect a lot from the Z3735, especially when you're running on a Windows PC. But, it's great that you can run it either way. So it runs pretty good. As you can see, frame rate is not the best. As you can see, this recording has at 60 frames per second, and you can definitely some frame skips, but don't expect a lot from that processor, but this is still very, very good. Alright, so one 3D game you can play, which is kind of a decent 3D game here, is this is called Torchlight 2, and as you can see, the frame rate is pretty good. I wouldn't say this is 60 FPS, but this is playable. I'm using a mouse right now. over the USB port, which gives me a mouse to play with, which is great. And as you can see, the game is pretty playable here. I've set it to the lowest possible settings, of course, but on a native 1280 by 800 resolution. I don't know if I can handle these guys. I haven't been to this area before. Oh, I'm dying. I need some potions. How do you, oh, nope. Anyway, that's it for Torchlight 2 on the Intel Atom Z3735 on the Wizbook WB-101H. Alright guys, so that's about it for the Wizbook WB-101H dual boot Android Windows laptop / tablet hybrid. And I think it's a pretty good device, but ultimately what it comes down to is the price, $12,995. This is not the cheapest one out there. There are more affordable ones out there, but this is a specific unit that I like because there are certain things that that isn't available in certain laptops or tablet dual boot hybrids. For example, some of them do not have the built-in keyboard dock, and some use a Bluetooth keyboard. I prefer the keyboard that attaches directly to the tablet because there's no lag. Plus, on most keyboards, on most Bluetooth keyboards, you do not have this touchpad on the bottom, and it's not multi-touch either. So if you do get one of these, this is one of the better ones because you have a decent keyboard and a touchpad. And of course, there's something that you really cannot buy in certain places, and that is a DC in. Most of the laptops or tablet hybrids that you can get out there do not have a DC in, which means you will be occupying one of these USB ports to charge your device, most likely the micro USB, to charge your device at the same time while using two of the USB ports. Now, that's not such a problem with so many USB ports, but in some combinations, for example, if you have a Bluetooth keyboard instead, it doesn't have a USB port full size on the right side, which means it'll be using the battery for Bluetooth connectivity, and you will have less USB ports out there. Most tablets in this price range have just one USB port, so you can only charge or use a USB accessory at the same time. You can't have both. Plugging in a USB hub will help, but you can't charge from a USB hub either. So if you only have one USB port, you can only charge or use a USB hub as well. So I do like the DC in port. Of course, that means you will be bringing a separate charger if you want to, but of course if you're not, you can always just charge it via the regular USB. Well, another thing that I like, which is slowly disappearing these days, is the mini HDMI or micro HDMI output, which is great, especially for Android, because there's very little amount of Android devices that can output HDMI. So that's a huge, huge, huge plus. And of course, there's other laptops out there in this price range with an Intel Atom processor with no dual boot feature. So that's also very good. All right, so let's talk about the pros and cons of the Wizbook WB-101H. Now, I do like the super generous amounts of ports because you can't have enough USB ports in the device like this. You want to be charging your device and playing the game at the same time. And that's where the DC in comes in. And of course, all the extra USB ports for mice, USB sticks, USB hard drives, and stuff like that. The other pro is that I like the keyboard dock and the touchpad. You know, the touchpad could be better, but it does a good job either way. Number 3 pro is that I like that you can swap between Windows and Windows and Android. I know there are other laptops like that can do that as well, but you know, it's still not everybody's cup of tea, or not everybody can do that, so that's a nice bonus as well. Now let's talk about the cons. Number 1, I think the con is it's a little pricey for this kind of device. $12,995. There's a lot of other Z3735 devices out there with a lot lower price, but then again, you do not always get the keyboard, you do not always get the extra ports, so that's why it's that price. Number 2, there's not a lot of space for Windows. There used to be other devices that only do Windows with 32 gigs of storage, and you get the 32 gigs for Windows, and that should be enough for a lot of apps. But unfortunately here you only get 16, and most of it will be taken up by Windows. Then you do not have enough storage. Now the number 3 con that I don't like is that I haven't mentioned this before. If you close the lid, it doesn't turn off the display or turn off the device. It doesn't have the magnetic display turn off toggle. which means it will discharge the battery until it runs out. Now the battery is pretty good, I'm not complaining, but you have to remember to turn the display off, or put the device to sleep before you close the lid. So there it is. That's what I think about the Redfox Wizbook WB-101H. I like it because it has all the ports. Now, given the choice between, you know, a more standard 8-inch tablet with no ports or no extra ports, I would go for this particular one because of the extra ports. I can, you know, show my PowerPoint presentations with the mini HDMI. I can charge it and play games at the same time. You don't have to worry about your charge. On other devices, you can only do one at a time, which is kind of not so good. That's about it, guys. That is the Wizbook WB-101H Windows and Android switchable dual boot tablet hybrid laptop. I'm Alex from TechnoClass.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.